Spectastic, the weekly web show for the avid comic book reader and those who aspire to become so. Now, one of my biggest problems with comics is that they don't change. Characters remain static, and then even when they are allowed to grow, there is eventually a knee-jerk reaction to pull them back to their starting points. And this is overall somewhat understandable, considering how much is at stake with characters that have become franchises extending far beyond the page. However, there have recently been two huge changes in comics, from the big two no less, that re-energize their respective titles and now hang in the balance. I'm talking about Damian Wayne and Superior Spider-Man. Today I'm going to give you a closer look at why I think each development has been so crucial to the Batman and Spider-Man franchises, and why both are now in grave danger. Plus, as always, my recommendations for what comics to pick up or download this week. Let's get started. There have been a lot of Robins. Of course, there's the original Dick Grayson, who wears his heart on his spandex. He's had by far and away the longest run, but eventually outgrew the role, or more accurately, his growing fan base warranted his striking out on his own as Nightwing. Then there was Jason Todd, a troubled youth who found himself lost in the gray area between Batman and the criminals he fights to take down. Next came Tim Drake, a natural detective and perhaps the closest Bruce Wayne has come to a mini-me. For some reason, DC editorial decided that all these boys should look alike, a trend which continued when Grant Morrison retconned Son of the Demon. Yes, Batman and Talia's son lived. And while he might have looked like the Robins who came before him, that's where the similarities ended. Damian Wayne, the son of an assassin and a vigilante, was a little dark prince, and readers fell in love with him as soon as he called Alfred Pennyworth. Morrison and later on Peter Tomasi gave Damian amazing depth, a little boy who wielded dual katanas yet kept his own menagerie of adopted pets in the Batcave. But even beyond Damian's own strength of character was how he allowed Bruce Wayne's to grow. Batman exists because Bruce's family was taken away from him, and as he sought vengeance, he couldn't help but try to recreate a new one of adopted bats. But then came Damian, and suddenly it was not the end of the Wayne line. Damian's existence was a wish granted for a man who deep down was perhaps as lonely and in need of love as his newfound son. Furthermore, as others have pointed out, Batman and Talia's fight for their son's soul was a fascinating metaphor for everyday divorce. A child torn between two parents who hated each other, yet both were loved by the child. So as I made very clear at the time, I thought it was terribly cruel to let Grant Morrison kill off Damian, his master plan be damned. It was cruel to cut Damian down in his figurative and literal prime. It was cruel to the fans who were just getting to know him. And it was unbelievably cruel to Batman, who once more had his family violently taken away from him, only this time he himself had played a hand. Now, of course, as is also the case with modern-day comics, DC quickly began to resurrect Damian shortly after his side note blink and you missed it death. His body, along with Talia's, who was also killed, have been stolen from the Wayne Cemetery by the League of Assassins, and it's also been revealed that Damian's grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, is growing a whole crop of Damian clones. Bleeding Cool has heard from its sources that Damian will return in some form or another in summer 2014, and in the meantime, DC has let superstar artist Andy Kubert spotlight a slightly older Damian in the Elseworlds-ish miniseries Son of Batman. The first issue has already come out, and of course, I bought it, and it was very pretty to look at, as Kubert is one of the best artists in the entire industry. But Kubert has done little writing, and it sadly shows here. Morrison handpicked Tomasi to write Damian in Batman and Robin, and Kubert underscores why that was necessary. Kubert writes Damian as if he were any of the Robins, almost as if he were an amalgam of all three, but there is no Damian here. Even visually, Damian is wrong. Kubert has him slouching. Our little dark prince would never forget about his posture. So sure, Son of Batman is pretty to look at, but it will only remind you that Damian is still dead, and even if and when he is resurrected, he will probably never be the same. Not because he's a clone, but because DC editorial needs to really work on quality control. Your turn, Marvel! Now, when the publisher began hinting at a momentous event in Amazing Spider-Man 700, I think it's pretty safe to say that none of us guessed it would be Dr. Octopus switching bodies with Peter Parker. And to make matters worse, Otto Octavius was about to die, so that meant after the switch, it was Peter who died. But not before injecting a little of his own conscience back into Otto, just enough to make sure Otto would give up his criminal ways and continue to fight the good fight as Spider-Man. Even a multi-issue tease that part of Peter's mind remained in his body was literally wiped away by Otto upon discovery. And thus began the Age of Superior Spider-Man, a self-proclamation that Otto would not only continue on as Spider-Man, but do a better job than Peter ever did. And he has! He got Peter's personal life in order by learning to delegate to a highly effective Spider-Man army, coming up with brilliant yet simple solutions to problems that have plagued Peter Parker since the character was created. One can fault Otto's methods, but it's hard to argue with his results. Brand New Day couldn't separate Mary Jane from Peter Parker, with her sticking around as an awkward third wheel as he sort of tried to build a relationship with Carly Cooper. In comparison, Otto quickly realized MJ was giving this tiger the runaround and dumped her. Also, his recent run-in with Black Cat, while wrong, you shouldn't hit a lady, was hilarious. It feels so good to see punching bag Peter Parker dishing it out for once. And that's what's so great about Superior Spider-Man. He's not only an answer to all the tired tropes of Peter Parker, but the tropes that have spread out across the comic book medium, likely spawned by Spider-Man, one of the longest-running characters on the page. I like this new hero with a spine. Now, writer Dan Slott, who masterminded this whole thing to begin with, has begun to drop hints that Peter Parker will soon return. No! I know there are Peter Parker fans out there, but we're talking about a character who's stuck in such a rut that both the Ultimate and 616 lines decided they're better off with someone else in the suit. Indeed, while Batman's rogues gallery and supporting cast helped keep him fresh, Spider-Man has developed little beyond his origin story, which might be why we have to keep seeing it over and over again. I hope that even if Peter does return, it will be as a changed man, and that Otto finds another youthful body to continue his adventures as an anti-hero. After all, while Spider-Man has a pretty big rogues gallery himself, it would seem they would have their headquarters in a retirement home. Sadly, more recent, younger editions like Mr. Negative and Screwball haven't exactly clicked. And where the hell is Anna Kravinoff? She was genuinely scary and played a vital role in the last great Spider-Man event, The Grim Hunt. So, speaking of Superior Spider-Man, I encourage you to pick up the title even though its days are numbered, and probably always were. This week, issue number 21 hits shelves, where an old girlfriend from Otto's villainous past comes looking for revenge on Spider-Man, who is now Otto. And the X-Men think they have the super soap market cornered. Plus, those X-Men need to work on their crossovers. Battle of the Atom is over, and I couldn't really tell you how it ended. It started out so strong. I guess we all need to pick up all new X-Men number 18 for the wrap-up. And hey, even if she isn't getting any respect in the X-Men movies, at least Kitty's front and center in the comics. Not just here, but also over in the new Marvel Knights X-Men mini, where she teams up with Wolverine and Rogue. By the way, joining the Avengers turned out to be a bad career move for Rogue, huh? Bram Revel from Ani Press's Gorillas crafts his first Marvel adventure. Then over at DC, another title is saved by great artwork. While I'd rather see Tony Daniel drawing Superman and, well, anybody but Wonder Woman, I'll take what I can get. Basically, this issue is Meet the Parents, mythology style. Finally, Image lands another top-notch writer, this time Chris Dingus from TV's Being Human and Reaper. Turns out Lewis and Clark have been holding out on us when it comes to what they found out west. In Manifest Destiny, Dingus argues the United States was able to take over the rest of North America because nobody else wanted land riddled with monsters. History books are always leaving out the good stuff. And that's this week's Stacktastic. I'm Grace Randolph for Think About the Ink and hope to see you back on Friday for Between the Pages. Until then, happy reading.